I'm Sam Reis, joined by Dave Meluni, who is a professor here at Syracuse, teaches an NIL class for sports management. Dave, thanks so much for taking the time.
No, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me, and really appreciate it.
Yes, so we're looking forward to getting your insight. So let's get right into it, because this is pretty big news in the NIL landscape of modern college athletics. So first question, can you just describe what exactly this fund is and the overall impact it has on Syracuse athletics for those who are a little unfamiliar at this point exactly what this is?
Yeah, I mean, I think to just sort of compartmentalize this a little bit, it's really 4 pillars, and actually 2 of those pillars kind of fall under one silo, which is basically winning championships, which we all know is very important, and then basically cultivating championship caliber teams, right? So those are 2 things that come under sort of that silo of winning. The other part is the student athlete experience, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, right? And from that standpoint, right, when you're looking at that student athlete experience, what you want to make sure is that regardless of those wins and those losses, you know, that student athlete, when they leave this institution, is going to give back in some way, shape, or form. It could be a legacy from a family member eventually attending the institution. It can be from a monetary standpoint. So I think that that's really important to make sure that our student athletes have the best experience possible when they're here. And then that last pillar is really to strengthen the Orange brand. And we talk about this quite a bit in my NIL course, is exposure. And we have some of the best exposure in the country when it comes to even what you guys are doing here in the ACC network, and then obviously playing in a Power 4 institution, or Power 4 conference, is we're one of those institutions in the ACC. So that immediately sort of translate to brands nationally. So it could be any sort of brand, and I'll use some that like we work with specifically here at Syracuse, like a Dunkin' Donuts, right, who's the official coffee of Syracuse athletics. But they've also initiated some activations with student athletes. So those are really the 4 pillars, and I think that that's really important. I think one of the key pieces to this that has changed is that any donor who provides a donation to the campaign, it's a tax write-off. So it's a 501c3, which we can get into a little bit of collectives if you'd like to. But along those lines, I think that's probably the best 10,000-foot view for you.
Sure, that's some fantastic insight. And I'm curious as well, beyond how this benefits the student athletes here at Syracuse, how does this campaign also impact, those off the field, whether that's, donors or fans of the Orange?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we as fans want winning teams. Sure. And I think from a community standpoint, you saw it in the fall, right? Yep. Restaurants were full, campus was abuzz, merchandise sales, and I'm not just saying like from a university standpoint, but I think it helps the full culture. And then just look at what you guys do in the media. How many times that we have alums that are working games in all different sports, and all of a sudden there's just a little hint in there of, hey, Orange won, Coach Fran Brown, whatever it may be, right, is said. And I mean, I think even his little slogan, winners get washed, got said at the Super Bowl, which is kind of cool, right? Yeah, so I think that is an impact that, organically strengthens the brand of Syracuse. So I think that's what you're looking at. But at the end of the day, we want to win.
Sure. And John Wildhack in the athletics department has consistently spread the message that Syracuse wants to be a school that's competitive in the current NIL landscape. So would you argue that this campaign right here is a big statement in terms of being consistent with that message?
No, Sam, you have to. Yeah. Like I would, put the pitchfork down and say you had to do this, right? And John knows my position on some of this stuff, and he's done an incredible job. That you have to navigate this. I think what folks need to understand is once the settlement, which we all think will happen, but I'm not sure because I'm not the judge. But if the $20.5 million, which is permissible for an institution to pool pay, that's the term, right? Pool pay student athletes, well, how are we going to fundraise for that? Yep. And that is going to be very interesting because of some things that the Department of Education and the Trump administration came down the last few weeks when it comes to Title IX. And by no means am I an expert in that area. So I navigate that somewhat loosely, but there's a lot of implications there. But I mean, really, this is necessary to say, hey, we need some help, right? But it's not just from an NIL perspective, right? So we talked very much so of the student athlete experience. It's the building of facilities, it's nutrition. And one thing that we don't talk enough about is the mental health of students and student athletes.
Dave Meluni, thanks so much for the time. I could talk to you about this all day, but we have more to come here on a loaded On the Bench show. So for now, back to you guys at the desk.